In today's episode, this apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. Compliance with company timesheet requirements resulted in 40% pay increase. So let's get started. This apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. I just figured out that this subreddit exists, and I had a strong urge to share this story. English is not my first language, so please excuse my French. This all happened 5 years ago, while some of my friends were still in tourism college. How it works in my country is that you need to have a practical exam to literally spend your summer vacation working as a semi-intern paid under minimum wage, though it's tourism, so they got to work on vacation kind of. Their job title was something in the lines of hose representative. Agency would make contracts with small apartment owners, usually 5 to 15 rooms, and they would resell their apartments in some tourist arrangements. Job of my friends was to basically show guests around and be on 24/7 call if any of the guests ever needed anything. So in perspective, houses were scattered around the city/even cities, and it was sometimes very hard to get by them, especially as agency was run by, as always is, fat greedy guy who didn't really care about providing, or rarely provided, any means of transportation. So when just 2 guests would need something, it would take you hour just to walk from point A to point B. So how one day-to-day operation would look for them? They had income of new guests 2 times a week. I think an agency would usually transport people by plane and buses, so it would be just one big group. This is your apartment, there is store, there is beach, call me if you need anything. Easy as that in 90% of the time. Though there was other more damaging group or self-transport group, how they called them. Those people were coming with their own cars or whatever, and they would usually have time windows like in hotels, check-in time from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Only difference, those houses don't have receptions. My friends were basically one. So timetable was kinda more for them, so they know they will be welcoming guests from 12 to 4. I know all of this as my friends invited me to get there, as it was a tourist location with sea, and it was really nice. Free stay as they had a spare bed in their apartment. I only had to spend money on food and nightlife. Also, I was kinda shadowing my friends while they were doing their work, and usually eavesdrop up just from pure boredom. So one day they had to welcome guests at a very nice villa resort. It's on the outskirts of city, beautiful place, expensive as F, and some parts were still developing as it was kinda brand new. They had one villa finished and polished, other was missing some cosmetic/trivial things on outside, but rooms were amazing. It's 12 to 4 check-in time, and we are waiting for 12 families. All of them are in their rooms till 2 a.m., and we are waiting just for one more so we can go on our ways and have something to eat, as the resort was so expensive we could not afford to eat there. It's 8 p.m., and the last family did not provide their mobile phone. The only contract is a landline number from a different country 1400 km/900 miles away. Again, this is a story from 2016. My friend and I were hungry like street dogs at that point. A third friend joins us, and he has a vehicle this time as he is transporting some goods to another city, so he invited us to go with him so we can buy something to eat out of the resort. Of course, the moment we took a first bite of food, we were called by the 12th family that arrived kinda shortly after. We get back to the resort where they are waiting outside of their room in their SUV. So one thing about SUV, it was really expensive, as you can imagine, brand new, but registration read that it was registered in a small town. And if you know that place, you kind of immediately know they are a bunch of apes. In more international perspective, it would be kind of if Florida ever had incest sex with Texas, and they made small town. Before my friend was even able to say hi, how are you doing, complaints started firing from top to bottom all around, insults, F-bomb, or words, horrible language. The dude looks like you took construction worker to Versace, and gave him Mr. Beast's credit card. His wife was even worse than generic Karen. In combination, it was doomsday. They had a complaint about everything. How everything is half/done, and that's not true. How there are, and this is important, cables hanging everywhere that their kid might touch and die. Those are their own words. How fence around the villa was unfinished and there was a concrete machine next to it. This was only true though, who cares? They were not working at that time, it was just chilling in the back. Then he started talking about how he was working contractions his whole life, It was obvious, as those people are notorious for selling their father's land and living large after, and how he doesn't want to see construction equipment anywhere near him. After all of that, my friend asked him if he can show us where are those cables sticking. Those aren't cables, by the way, it was radiator pipes not connected to radiator. As you are on summer vacation, I'm pretty sure it will be hot enough without those. And yet kid that can touch them and die was actually teen in her 13-15-ish. She was just sitting in car and we didn't see her while they were bombing us with insults. Even me, who was just bystander, and told him I had nothing to do with this. MC moment. Conclusion for them is that they are robbed, and that this apartment is not good enough by our luxury lifestyle standard. They want their money back, but we can't do anything about that, and the agency office is in another city, 1 to 1.5 hours drive. They forced us to drive there so they could follow us to speak with the owner. Moment we get there, they start with the same lunatic behavior, yelling, insulting, everything, though this time in the middle of a very crowded city. What we failed to mention was that 2016 was a hell of a vacation year. Everything was booked to 2017, and we saw people begging for literal shad. We left the agency office before them. We had enough, but one of my friend's colleagues saw them sleeping in the tent beside the beach for the next few days, and we were sure they failed to find anything, so they probably had to turn around and go back home for another 1,400 kilometers ride with 2 boarders. Compliance with company timesheet requirements resulted in 40% pay increase. Reposted with my correct account. The background. I have been a freelance contractor for over 30 years, UK, and worked for many companies, usually on an hourly or daily rate. About 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to work for a client on a 6-month contract on a daily rate, and also to work from home except for some site visits for meetings. Since I was working from home, I was able to work my own hours. I was judged basically on my output, not the bum hours on seat. I would work whenever I wanted, an hour here or there, multiple breaks during the work day, and also sometimes at weekends whenever I felt like it. However, I ensured that I at least complied with the 40 hours a week minimum, even though I was on a daily rate. The way that it worked on this contract was that I would submit my timesheet for my boss to sign, that would be sent to my agency, and they would do all the work to create invoices to the end client and pay me based on how long I worked that week. I did not have to submit invoices to the agency. They used something called self-invoicing. Now, because of the hassle of trying to record all the start times, times for breaks, etc., it was a pain to fill in the client's timesheet, which only allowed for 1 start time, 1 lunch break, 1 end time. So, because I was on a daily rate, I would just record a standard 9 to 17:30 start/stop and 30-minute lunch for every weekday, knowing I was putting in the hours and not cheating the client. This was all well for a couple of months. My boss would sign the timesheet, the agency would invoice the client and just send me the money each month. At some point I would reconcile my books, noting the payments against my days worked. The compliance. At some point my boss balked at how I was filling in my timesheet and asked for it to be more detailed. This was where the malicious compliance took over. I would carefully record all the periods I was working, which I did anyway, and then create a timesheet for the week. This resulted in several pages of timesheets rather than the previous 5 lines, now showing all periods I worked, all breaks I took, total hours for each day, total hours for the week. My boss would need to check all of this and sign it, and we continued that way for a while. The fallout. Now you may think this was only a small malicious compliance. It took me extra effort to comply. My boss got the detailed timesheet he required and nothing changed. However, there was an unexpected consequence of this compliance, which was rooted in the contract I had signed, and the contract that the client had signed with the intermediate agency. It came down to the definition of a working day. Remember, I was on a daily rate, not an hourly rate, even though the client insisted on a breakdown of all my hours. After a few months, when I tried to reconcile my own company's books, it seemed that I was getting paid more than I expected, 40% more to be precise. When I investigated, it turned out that I had overlooked my contract that stated that I was paid a full day's contract rate irrespective of how many hours I worked on that day. So if I happened to work 10 hours, say, I would just get the day rate, but if I worked for only an hour, I would still get the full day rate. Since I was now giving a timesheet that also detailed the few hours I might work on Saturday and Sunday, as well as the 5 work weeks, even though I was still only working a total of 40 hours, I was getting paid for 7 days rather than 5 days. I decided not to bring it to the notice of my boss, since I doubt he had visibility of the invoices. He was just signing off my timesheet every week. This resulted in an unexpected pay rise for the final couple of months of my contract. I just wish I had complied earlier in my contract. Thanks for watching.